Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Monday night. Thank you. Suddenly I can't talk. Thank you so very much for coming and joining John and myself. We are Sans Cubby tonight.
We are. Cubby's doing some
So
family things tonight. When you're papa, things pop up and you got to do it. So we're
so
hopefully Cubby will get everything all taken care of and be ready for next week with us.
so that just means that when we have a question tonight and we're posing it back and forth with the two of us, that those of you in the chat room are just going to have to answer and pretend that you're Cubby.
and
And,
give
pretend that your pup's sitting behind you and you're giving us the best answer that you possibly can. And then
and
we'll pretend that it was close enough to Cubbies and you'll be good.
There we go. There we go. And you can put in the chat room. And if you've got questions tonight, we'll be going through it. We have a lot of questions. And one big one we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be talking about wireless microphones for ceremonies is one of the questions. And this one, I brought props, Dan.
Done. Like photo booth props? Like, are we gonna have some signs and some funny
No.
hats?
Well, okay.
Oh,
So here's just a sneak peek of one of the props.
yeah.
You hear the wind noise?
No.
Oh, come on. You got to be able to hear the wind noise coming across.
No.
I can hear it in my ears. Anyway, I brought a fan along because
Okay.
I want that wind noise in the ceremony microphone discussion. So I'm so disappointed you
Good to know.
couldn't hear the wind noise. Zoom must have just knocked it out, I suppose. Oh.
Zoom does do that so that there is a setting. What is it, original musician or something like that? There's a setting you might need to adjust
Okay, so
or
let's just for those of you who are uh, let's go to low, and we're gonna just try it one more time because I want to make sure that.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Now I heard it.
There we go. So now we have a better chance of when we go to that part of the test. We'll see how it's going to come through. So, but yeah, we've got some questions we're going to get to tonight, and we'll jump to that list here. I'm going to just pull that up, and oh, there it is. So let's jump to our first one. So Dan, the first question tonight, someone had posted and wondering if other DJs had run into a venue that said basically that they would not serve alcohol to vendors. If they've run into that, and if so, how whatever how did it make you feel, whatever. We're not going to go into that part of it too much, but have you ever run into a venue that had a policy pro or con when it came to alcohol and vendors?
I'll tell you, you had asked me that 3 months ago, and I said no. But there is one nearby to us that this was kind of interesting. So they have a sheet that they ask the couples to give to their vendors, and right on there is that you will not partake in any alcohol while you are on their property. So
Nice.
it was interesting because they don't serve, right? It's just it's a venue that basically is housing everything. It's a third party that's brought in to do the alcohol serving. So it's interesting that it's even somewhat on their sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have a problem with the policy, but it's just like, it's not like one of their staff is the one that's serving it. Their staff is just doing like coordinating, and that's it. So,
That's
but
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
it's there.
I've never run into it myself from that standpoint. I have heard the horror stories from the venue staff when you're talking to them, and they would be like, "You should have seen last week's DJ. That guy was up at the bar, and it was open bar, and he sucked down so many. He was so drunk he couldn't do." We've heard those stories time and time again, and I think that's why exactly why you saw that, and why this person that posted it saw that. I think though the part of it we need to kind of drift back to is the idea of when we go out and we're performing, we're kind of working. And is there any other job that you can think of beyond maybe Freedom Williams when he's singing and drinking his quart of whiskey? That was a Mobile Beat reference. He did that literally. He was so plowed by about 2/3 of the way through the show. I don't even know if he was singing anymore. But is there any other job out there where you can actually go and drink while on duty?
Here is where I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to say yes. and it's your entertainers. It's your comedians,
Yeah.
your rock stars, your people that are doing those types of things where it suddenly becomes, I guess we'll say, accepted that they're on stage and they're drinking while they're doing it. No, not everybody partakes in that, right? But I've seen Ron White, always
Yeah.
had like whatever it was that he had in there, and so there, there's different comedians that we're familiar with that have done that. But any anything on that other side of that, any professional type of position, I can't think of a single one where it's suddenly accepted. Um, other than that entertainer, which might be why people think it's okay.
And I wonder. You said it's accepted, and I think in some areas it's expected because I've been to comedy shows in some of these small towns, and they have no idea if the comedian drinks or doesn't drink, and all of a sudden there's 10 shots that go flying up to the stage, and I've thought to myself the very first time, it's like that's kind of they don't know if this person is is a recovering alcoholic, and where they are in their life, and just all of a sudden send up shots like that. That's really really gutsy and potentially very very offensive to the wrong person or right person. So
I would also go a step further within this kind of idea is that there's very few professions where ev- I don't want to say everybody, but a large majority of the people around that profession are having drinks and the person's not. Outside of maybe a bartender or a server in a restaurant,
right.
you know, that's obviously a little bit different too. But again, I think that's why some people think, well, everybody else is like, of course that means that I get to. Um, I again, I can see where the mentality of, well, it's accepted, it's commonplace, it's all around everybody else's. I don't think we're not necessarily going down the aisle tonight of, should you drink or not, but yeah, like that's a different type of job,
Hmm.
right? Because again, you don't see doctors doing it. Yes, but I also don't see their patients drinking something while the doctors are in the room either.
Very true, very true. All right, let's jump to our next question. So our next question about was from a DJ who was wondering, dance floor was full, had the things that were going, everyone was having a great time, and the bride came up and wanted a song played that was basically going to be a song that would probably clear the dance floor completely. And the DJ was kind of lamenting, was asking, do you play that song and knowing it's going to clear the floor and make you look bad, or what? How do you handle that situation? How do you handle that situation, Dan?
So the first thing that I would ask when she comes up, and first off, this has to be somebody, it has to be the couple coming up. This is not, the bridesmaid who said that the bride said to play. No,
Right.
I want to hear from her. But when they come up, okay, is this a song that, this is not a very danceable song. Are you aware of that? Oh, we can dance to it. Really? Because I don't necessarily know if that's possible. And then the next question, I'd be like, does this? I'm not going to like go into 30,000 questions here, but I'm going to kind of make sure that she understands what the possible ramifications of me playing this non-danceable song are. And once we're past that, special shout out for Susie and her friends who love this song.
And
There
I
you
think
go.
that's exactly how I would handle the situation. Just to clarify, and nicely do that with the bride and say, hey, this is going to be a huge change, and it might there might be some folks who don't hang out. Oh yeah, but my friends and I, we love this song and we're going to sing along to it. Sweet. Then the Susie and her friends, and then the crowd will not only they won't leave as quickly because now they're going to want to stay out there and see what's going on with Susie and her friends, and can I be part of Susie's friends and sing along. And you may get people who without that announcement would have just kind of drifted off, saying, well, that was just kind of the bride and her friends are doing it, so whatever. But the announcement can buy you some extra love from the crowd, I think, on that one.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you go on completely left field with something and nobody has the story that goes behind it, and I'm not saying you have to give the story, but if nobody knows the meaning behind it, it just looks like the DJ took a left turn. But if you can bring the fact that the couple wanted this song, Now it could be the worst song out there, but the crowd's going to buy into it more because of that emotional tie, and that's who they're there for, is for the couple.
And I think that, yeah, the story behind, Bill Herman talks about this in some of his, the why. Not that you're going to ask it in a snotty way or anything, but hey, what's the story behind this song? Oh, it's our favorite song, and we're going to sing along to it, and then we're going to all twirl around and do this with our hands, and it's going to be so much fun. Sweet. Now I have the why, and can I tell them the why as I post the song? If I can do that, I've got a win-win, because I can do it over the music and talk about it and get them excited, and then the crowd will be like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be so much fun, whatever it is." The why.
Oh, why?
All right,
SCA.
let's jump to the next one. So the inverters, Rachel's done videos on it. I've done videos. A lot of people have done some videos on these battery powered inverters. And the Jackery, of course, is the one that we've done the most on, because it's the one of the most popular. Dan, you've got one. Tell us, which one do you have, and what's, after a season of utilizing it, where are you at with it mentally, as far as positive, negative, where?
So I had the Energizer one, and I used that for a while. And just this year, I maybe Prime Day deals, I switched to the Jackery. I had the Jackery 1000 because I wanted something that was a little bit more. I wanted a lot more power. What the Energizer one was good, but I was like, it would last me 3 hours. And I was starting to get nervous when I'd have, okay, I do my test, and then we have prelude, and then I got a really long-winded officiant. It was cutting it too close.
Yeah,
So that led to, when I bought the Jackery, I didn't go for the 500, because that would have only given me a little bit more than what I was getting with the Energizer one.
right.
Go up to the 1000. Now I don't even drop 10% in all of that I've just done. So it gives me a lot. And then one of my friends local, Eric Stoner, he was like, hey, pick up the 1000, because if you have something where your photo booth goes down, it can also power your photo booth.
Yep.
And I'm like, done. Like, now I've got a backup for that. I can breathe a little bit easier throughout the night.
One of the things I like about the Jackery, specifically the 1000 that you're talking about, Dan, is that you can literally plug that in. I've got a battery backup over here, which most people do. You could literally plug that in as a battery backup, because it has pass-through power that will power your computer system and such. And then if the power goes out, the battery's working, and you've got this huge. So ideally, it would be plugged in right ahead. Now, it's not in my system plugged in that way, because I used it last weekend, and it's still in a truck.
Doesn't do any good, John, if it's not plugged in.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, with that being said, this will be the first time you're going to hear me say this, and I have to say that I would be questioning buying a Jackery right now. And the reason for it, and this is from a guy who just bought the 2000, Jackery 2000, but it's the Pro version. The reason is our Jackery 1000, which I own, and a Jackery 300, which I own, have got a lithium battery in there that has a life cycle of about 500 charge and discharge, complete discharge, complete charge. When you do proportions of that, that doesn't quite count to the full, but I mean, it's a 500 cycle. The Jackery Pro has a 2000 cycle life expectancy. Now, what you're going to be seeing coming out here in the next month and two is batteries that are using the lithium iron phosphate, or lithium. It's the Li, and then there's an iron, and there's some other things. But basically, they're changing the mechanism. And if you go to that link in the chat below, in the description of the video, there's a link to Firman, Firman. That is what the new technology that's coming out. And you're going to see literally two today. Two different companies sent me things saying, hey, we've got our new thing with the new battery, and it's got 5,000, 4,000. One had 10,000 a duty cycle for 10,000 charges and discharges. Those batteries are going to be coming out. So the Jackery stuff, I think you're going to see the price go down. I would be surprised on Black Friday if that we're going to see things. The thousands are going to be sold maybe as much as half of what Dan and I paid for them. I can't be too bent out of shape about it, because that Jackery, it's paid for itself with ceremony. This past weekend, I was at a place where they had an air wall, and I needed to have sound coming off that air wall, because there was a DJ on the other side of the air wall. So I needed a speaker there. to be able to fire back at me. Jackery, speaker, coming back, and the people at that end of the room could hear the microphones and all the cocktail. If we wouldn't have had that, they would have just been hearing the noise from the other room hammering through the wall. So Jackery definitely is worth the investment. Again, I knew these other ones were coming out, and I still went and bought the Pro because I wanted to have a horse of a machine, a 2,000 watt one. But there's going to be a couple of them coming out, and if you're in the market for it, either wait until Black Friday in that time frame, or wait until December, and we'll be talking about something in December.
Well,
Yeah,
and you kind of bring up a point. Like, I don't think for those of us that are using this purely as like a ceremony off, off site, off the grid type of setup, picking up something like the Jackery, in that is, I mean, I'm not going to do 500 weddings probably before my career's done. But,
exactly. You see Mark Beecher,
so,
you mentioned the same
exactly,
thing.
right? Like, my Jackery is going to outlive me, right? So if that's all you're using, I think you're fine. But I think to John's point is, when we're seeing these Black Friday sales, we might see things dramatically decrease. So unless you're in the need for it now within less than a month, you might just be able to hold off because you'll see that come down, since the other stuff is going to be out for somebody who would use it in an everyday situation.
And that's a big part of what I'm looking at, is that the 2000, I have solar panels, and I want to set that up so that the solar panels are outside to do their thing. And it basically, the cord comes in and it's charging that, and then that's going to allow me to run lights, whatever. The kids and I've been kind of playing with solar and looking at different options, because we do have solar up on the roof, but we wanted to have something that they could learn from in that world. And this was definitely an option, and they had a great price on it a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, there's a lot of great options. Again, Furman Technology, the link is in the description below of tonight's video, or today's video, whenever you're watching it, so you can go and check that out. And let's see. Oh yeah, and then there was the Amazon for Amazon link that had the so you can go check out what the pricing are. That pricing is going to be much better in December for some units that are coming out. So just hold on. Don't go buy that Furman right now, unless you really really needed it. But even then, I would think I'd still hold on. Wait for some more. Okay, let's jump to our next one here. So the next question came about as someone is trying to get in touch with a bride. I saw a couple of different posts on that today. Someone had an event. They're 2 weeks out. They've got the contract. They've got money down on it, and they can't get the bride's not getting back to them. Some have been sending out information, and they can't get the bride's not getting back to them. How much do you reach out, or how often do you reach out? How do you handle that? Because sometimes after a while, you just get so frustrated. You're like, why do they do this?
For me, it depends upon the date in question. So if I have a couple that reaches out for a date that is an in-demand time, a fall, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
for me, fall is, I know I'm going to be booked, and if I'm not, I'm going to be wondering what the heck happened. Um, so if I have a couple that reaches out, I will send my message back. In that message back also is a text message that says, "Hey, check your messages." So they get both of those kind of initially. If they immediately ghost me, if I don't get a response off of that, like, when usually that first part is, "I'm available, let's talk some details." Like, I need to know some details so I can give you an accurate price. If I get ghosted immediately, I'll wait maybe a week. I'll contact them again. If I don't hear anything, see ya. But if I start having a back and forth and then they drop off, I usually wait about a week, kind of same idea. I will then send it. I will then send another message. And if I don't hear anything, they're gone. Now, you give me a date that's not as in demand, like a middle of July or a March type of event. Um, I'll drop them into my automation program that I have it set up, or the automation emails
Mm-hmm.
that I have set up, and then they get trickled. And I think it's 4 or 5 before it just, "Hey, we tried.
Bounces it. Yep.
Have a great day. See ya."
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different the pre-booking in that, depending upon the day, very very similar to that. But when it gets to the point of the actual when they're booked and you're trying to get a hold of them, it'll get to you get a month out, and if I haven't had contact with them or I haven't heard anything from them, then you start the email, phone call, text message, that kind of a and then if I'm not hearing anything after 2 weeks of that, and I'm getting within 2 weeks of the event, and this has happened, now I'm calling venue and talking to venue and trying to track down other family members as I'm still trying to contact them through their methodologies. And the closest I've gotten to a day, and I had not heard from the bride, was 4 or 5 years ago, and it was 2 days beforehand. And the venue assured me that they were still on, and they had the same phone number that I did. And the bride had come in and talked to them and said that everything was there, and she was looking forward to me performing for her. But I just never. And then 2 days beforehand, she's calling. She goes, "Hey, John, I just want to run through and get our songs and such ready for Saturday night. We're good to go." She was just that type of planner. If I would have had like the venue had, your menu has to be done by this, or there will not be, and I didn't have that. Not that I've ever really pushed that hard, but I didn't have that hard deadline. So for her, 2 days ahead of time, that's good enough for her. She was good. She was comfortable. So it's like, okay, so I'm being, in that case, it was more me being uncomfortable about it. And once we were done, it's like, okay, we're good. We went and had a good time. But yeah, it was like 48 hours ahead of time. And I'm just like, I don't know if I have a wedding this weekend or not. Do I? I don't know. She paid money down, but I don't know.
And I think that, first off, that's a different side. So I was all talking about the
Free side.
before they ever even
Yep.
book you type of thing. But for the couple that is doing the planning portion, and this is one of the reasons also that I like to do it 2 months in advance. Right. That gives me a good chunk of time. And I tell them, like, listen, we're going to be meeting 2 months before your day.
Sure.
Um, because then it gives me that time. But
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that's really starting to happen with a lot of our couples, and why we're seeing this more and more, where we're not getting things until kind of last minute, is because they think that last minute we can just put it all together, right? Like, how is it difficult for you to have my songs? You just put them in Spotify, right? Like I can give you my playlist right here, and you just take that and you use it, whether you play off of that or not. Even if you use the playlist that they gave you to play from, there's still an organization piece that they don't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some, I'm not saying for all, but for some, if you're running into having this scenario a lot, I would wonder how much communication you have with your couples during the process.
Sure.
Right? Do they book with you and then don't hear from you until it's all right, let's meet to go over everything?
And it,
Or are you giving them information throughout, reminding them to fill out your forms, reminding them to get into your portal, to go into your Vibo, whatever? Like, are you doing some of those things throughout to kind of help them in that process? Or is it only when you need something? That could be another reason why they're waiting.
very true. Yeah, very true. Many things, and everyone has a different tolerance when it comes to spontaneity and planning. And if you're one and they're a different type of personality, you could have some. That was back. Vicky Musney used to talk about that. If you aren't a good fit, it can be uncomfortable. You can make it work, but it could be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just take it up. Yeah, we'll just play some YouTube videos. Play the video during the wedding. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Of course. That's what everybody else does. Why not?
Exactly. It's a lot cheaper that way too. So, all right, let's jump to our next topic. All right, so Dan, let's jump into ceremony microphone options here. Because a lot of people have been asking about the DJI and the some of those. Comica has one, but basically what they are talking about is this is the Rode version. It is the Rode Wireless Go Pro. I also have the Wireless Go 2. We use those both at a trade show that we just covered down in Louisville 2 weeks ago. But it is a receiver, and then it has two little transmitters that are available with this one. And this is again the Pro kit. So it comes with the little charging thing where it's got the battery in there. You put them in there and they go crazy. And then it has an additional one. It has a bunch of cables. Now the cool cable that's in this little kit is where's the lav? Come on, lav. Somewhere in here is the little lav microphones that are in this little kit. I haven't even used these lav microphones yet because we've used this as an interview. The reason I would not use this for ceremony, just to put this out there right away, is first off, you'll see in a second, I'm going to show you what I think is a better option for it. Secondly, is that these are transmitting on a 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which is the same as Wi-Fi in pretty much everywhere. There are times when you can go and you do a search on the 2.4 band and you'll see 25 different Wi-Fi hotspots that are out there. We just finished a trade show in Louisville in the convention center where there's a lot of stuff going on, and we didn't have a problem with dropouts with this system or the wireless to go 2. So there would be the same technology in the Rode and or not the Rode, but the Comica and the DJI. So yes, you're going to probably have a chance of being fine. That's another point. That we'll just leave it go. Leave it go. The little units, though, I want to see. There we go. You can see there's a little microphone. That microphone, they have a little windscreens and such that can pop onto there. I'm not going to put those on because they're in that bag and they're all sealed up. But I want to. That's just a second. Dan, have you ever played with these, by the way, or a version of these?
I have not.
Okay, they're actually really cool because I didn't bring it out tonight, but there's a handheld, a plastic handheld and a foam, and you can slide this into the handheld and put the foam on it, and it becomes an interview mic. And that's what we were using, and that's what I kind of showed you with that Pioneer video, and it was absolutely fabulous at the trade show. So what I'm going to do, if everything's working right, I don't know if you can you hear?
It's real faint.
Real faint. That is one of the problems with this particular system, is that because it is not a pro or not a professional thing, I basically have it boosted as much as possible, but it doesn't have the sound. So now if I come in and talk to it, you can hear me.
Yeah, much better. It was almost like it was way too far away.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons we went to the handheld, the microphone, is then you could hold it right here, and it worked pretty well. But now you're hearing pops in audio. With the lav, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to open this up.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and do it.
We'll mute that microphone and do it. This is why we did it early, because then we've got more time. And I just went back to the studio mic for those of you who are like, hey, it sounds great now. Well, there's a reason why. We're talking a much more expensive microphone. Okay, a little papery thing. So now when it comes to the Rode stuff for just the doing some things with the cell phones and such, when we were doing the labs with that, those little Rode that tip ring sleeve were just an absolute fabulous mic that Rode made, and then we get that inverter, and then we could use them with the iPhones. I absolutely loved their system. They've got some pretty snifty things out there. See, now this would have been great to have earlier. Okay, so there's a little windscreen, and there's a clip. And I'm sorry this isn't the most stunning video for those of you out there watching it, but I'm hoping that by the time we get it done, this will be more telling. Okay, so that mic is muted. Stream is messy.
Twitch stream is messy.
Oh, Twitch stream. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we don't care about that. We're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Go over to YouTube. If you're watching us on Twitch, just go over to YouTube.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so it's like, no, everything's looking really good. Okay, so now that was muted.
Mm-hmm. Nope, nothing. Nada. Nope. They sing. No, because then we would lose all 8 of you that are still watching John do this. Singing is not an option for me.
So I'm seeing it bounce here.
Oh, now we're here.
Now
we're hearing you.
So am I right here? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
So this is for a camera. Now for a camera, if it was just me and it was a second person and we didn't have, trying to do it and boost it to go to Zoom, this is functional. It's not perfect, but it's functional. And it's a little bit better than if I was just using the pack itself. This has a little bit better pickup. So now, the wind. Can you hear the wind on the Lab?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is for those of you who are like, I've got to have a Lab. I'm going to call this. I'm going to go back to my. I'm going to call this an inexpensive Lab. Because the whole system basically is $400. Not that that's cheap. I'm not saying that that's there, but it's not an expensive Lab. And as you could hear, there was a lot of wind noise, and that wind noise is what you get when you have Labs to begin with, and then when you have when you've got a system like an inexpensive Lab, they even pick up wind worse. So there's that. Nice little system. Again, we used it for the trade show with the microphones, and Michael was able to see when we had our signal. We had one microphone going to the right side, one to the left, and you could do this at a wedding. You could have the officiants on the right and the grooms on the left. Bring it into your board and then make it so it's mono going out. But now you have control. If you bring the right side, you have a splitter. You bring the right side into 7 and 8, and you bring the left side into 9 and 10. Now I can have some adjustment to be able to work with that. That could be hugely valuable, and that part of it, simplicity and the ability to have them on two separate channels like that looks incredibly appealing. And in its little charging case and everything's there, it would function for a lot of receptions. Now, is it going to work every time? Maybe, but maybe not. Sometimes the best laid plans don't always work. So
what are they claiming as the range?
The range on this is about 200 feet. And there were times where Michael and I were in this busy room, and then he was on one side of a booth, and I was probably about 100 feet away on the other side. And he could hear the conversation that I had going, and then it would be like, okay, so Michael, once he finished doing his B-roll, it was like, okay, now I went about 50 feet to your right, and then another 50 feet that way. Yeah, and there's. So Comica uses UHF dual Lab. I had one of those, and I thought it just was terrible. I think I got 30 feet away, Aaron, on the Comica UHF, and I think it's actually sitting. I think this is Zigzine. This is Zigzine's version of it, and they're junk. I did not like that particular one at all. They were terrible. Okay, so that's a possibility, and I think for some people it would be a functional one, DJI or the Rode. There's no way to add extra antennas, so what you get is what you get. As soon as you get a lot of people between you and the where it's at, like everyone's standing, you're going to have a potential for dropouts. The more, as Ben says, the more bags of water you have between your transmitter and your receiver, the greater chance you have for issues. Now, what I've ended up using most of the time this year at ceremonies is getting into the EV stuff. This is the RE3 microphone. I had ordered these with the RE420 heads because I wanted to have a better mic element on the thing. And I will take this one to right there. So now you can hear the handheld for the microphone. Most of the time when they were doing weddings, they were holding it down here because this is obviously the most optimal spot for everyone to be doing a ceremony, is to have it down below them instead of talking into the microphone. But hey, whatever. It did a decent job with that. The range on these, this is the Sennheiser stuff. So you've got a high and a low setting in the transmitter and the microphone, and at the low setting, you're going to be pushing 100 feet. That's kind of right at the very end, at the extreme of it. You go to high setting on this thing, and you're getting 250 feet in my testing just out here, and that's with the I think it's half wave, but it's about the 14-inch long antennas. Because I think there's a 6-inch long and there's a 14-inch, so it's like a half wave.
Yep.
If you go to paddles, you're like into the next county. So if you do the paddle thing, now here's the wind test. This is a. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say take off your cheater
foam.
Take off your cheater foam.
So now you should be. Can you hear a little?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you get an idea of what what this can do. The foam, and I keep the foam on this. I change it after every show. Um, Actually, I need to order some more. But anyway, I change the foam out, and I keep the foam on it for the ones that other people use, because not only does it keep it cleaner, it the wind issue, and then if they drop it like I just did before the show started, it's a little more protection on it. Okay, let's go back to the big microphone, and we'll shut this one off. And we have one more, but this was used at virtually every wedding except the ceremony at the very last ceremony, which was a Christian and Jewish celebration. And that one, the rabbi wanted a handheld, because the rabbi, when he was doing some of the Hebrew chants, was into the mic. Oh my gosh, he had a voice. He just a very incredibly strong voice. And then the officiant, Pastor Grandpa Terry, he wanted to have the lav, so he ended up having this little guy, which is a little Countryman Lab, and it is into the RE3 pack. And I bought the handheld with the original receiver, and then I had to buy these things separately, and I ended up buying 2 of those. So I have 2 packs and 2 of the lavs, and we'll just clip that on. It's much more difficult than I would think. Let's check to Hey, am I there? No, I'm not.
Nope.
There's this thing called a mute. The little device has a mute button on it. Hey, right there. And if you, yeah. So now what you're hearing more room noise with this one, because this is an omnidirectional microphone. It worked really well for the ceremony from the standpoint that Grandpa Terry was up there, and he was going to have them say their vows or do the repeat after me things. And it picked up them as well as he. So I didn't have to have a second microphone for that, and everyone was able to hear them very, very well. You're also hearing right now my little electric heater on the floor. So that becomes, there's just more potential for noise. And that means that if I go here, the wind noise comes through. Now, this is a pretty strong wind. You're probably maybe looking at, 15 miles, 10, 15 miles an hour, whatever it was. At the ceremony where Grandpa was using this, there was about a 9-mile-an-hour wind, and we could hear every once in a while. But the little bit of wind noise and the ability that this gave us to hear Grandpa and hear the other things, it was well worth the time. And again, with the little transmitter, there's a high and a low on this, so you can set it up to be a stronger broadcast. But when you do that, your battery life, you're almost cutting your battery life in half. I don't care when it comes to that, because I'm going to be changing batteries. I only need it to be up for an hour anyway, so it's not like it needs to be up there for days. I'm just going to utilize it, and once it's done, the batteries will go. And I bring the batteries home, and the kids put them in their what is it? The little Nintendo Switchy thing. The Switch, is it?
The Switch?
I don't know, something that uses AA batteries. They eat AA batteries, so it's like I bring a handful of them in, and they're like, "Oh wow, we got new batteries." Well, you got batteries, not new. You have batteries.
New to you.
New to you. That's right. So that's just a couple of ideas that you get if you've never heard the Rode. It definitely is I think it's better than having a handheld, from the standpoint that a handheld can be obtrusive for some people and it can be difficult for them to use. So it's better for some people than a handheld. But being aware that you may get into a situation where that is not going to work because of interference with people, with bodies, with other internet. And that's, how do you, when you are out there doing ceremony, Dan, I mean, what's your backup in case you run into something where you're having interference like that?
I mean, I guess I'm lucky in the fact that I've got, because of where I set up, there's not an option to run a cable. So my ceremony rigs all have the ability to clear scan and go for multiple banks of channels and multiple, channels within each bank. So I've lucked out in that aspect where I've never run into, but I've gotten a couple where it's like, whew, the pickings were slim on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that case, it would just be unfortunate to be like, listen, we can't do microphones because the only other option is to run a cord, and I could, I guess, if I needed to, we would just be limited and have to be on a stand. But
And that's always been kind of my backup. And as you say, the when we're looking at the Rode or the DJI, there isn't the ability to select channels or scan for clear channels. The EV, the Sennheiser, and many of those, and I use them. I've got Sennheiser stuff too. Those can. Many of the professional things can at better quality mics. Yeah, Eric, you're exactly right. That I did not change the receiver, the sensitivity on the receiver. I could have changed the sensitivity on the receiver and boosted that a little bit and gotten more volume out of that lav. But all I really would have been doing is boosting more of that room noise also. It's just there's this give and take when it comes to it. Handheld is certainly going to give you the best sound quality, no question about it. You're right on with that. Day mentions in farm country, as am I. We're farms and lakes around here, so Wi-Fi shouldn't be a problem. But I still don't know if I would trust it as well as I would trust the professional system, because there's just more flexibility. I can go into the pack and adjust that sensitivity, bring it up, bring it down. You know, when that rabbi, when he's like, okay, so once they get here, here's my first chant that I'm going to do, and he just into the microphone. And it's like, okay, well, down, sensitivity, down. Okay, now try it, type of thing. With Pro Gear, you have that, and it does cost more. As I was thinking, it's like, I think if you take the Rode, which is about $400, and I think by the time I got done with that Sennheiser with 2 receivers, 2 handhelds, because again they were the better mic element, and the 2 better lavs and the 2 packs, I've got probably 4,000 into that system or whatever it was. You know, it's like substantially more than the other one.
one of the things that, and you kind of even mentioned this, like you have some other potential options in the way those pieces go together, right? So I have very similar type of idea. I made sure that all of my receivers are all the same band within the Sennheiser that I use,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bought it with a handheld, but then I was getting to a point. I'm like, okay, now I need some some lavaliers, and so I was grabbing it for the lavalier, and I was able to kind of piece together what I needed without having to buy. In fact, I think the last couple things I bought were just the receivers. I didn't
Mm.
even buy the mics because I was able to take a mic from over here. Like for example, on my rolling booth and my Danny Max, right? I don't need 2 new sets of handhelds. I can use the same handheld. I just need different receivers
Receivers,
because
yeah,
of what they're installed in.
yeah, for sure.
So you kind of have some of that flexibility. And the other thing I'll add, in this is there's going to be a big difference in the pickup,
Yeah,
right? So, for example, as John mentioned, he had the handheld, and that had a nicer element, but then he did the Countryman. And for those of you that are familiar with that, the Countryman tends to have a better pickup than maybe the Lav that just comes default with your packs.
sure.
So
Mm-hmm.
there are things that you can do with the equipment that you have that can still actually take that up a level.
Oh, very
Um,
much so. Yeah.
so kind of keep that in mind. Like if you're like, oh, I need to do this to get that, not necessarily. You might have some of the pieces and just have to kind of add to it.
Very much so, yeah, yeah, and that's where someone, talking to someone like Ben would be beneficial, because he's going to be able to say, oh, well, you bought this EV mic system. You don't have to buy the whole thing. You can just go and buy this, and you'll be great. That's very, 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 very possible. All right, let's try to get one more question in here if we can. So the next question came in. I saw this earlier today when somebody was basically saying that they just didn't feel like they were on top of their game. They weren't their performance. They were disappointed in their performance, even though the guests were like, "Oh my gosh, it was great," and they loved it. They just didn't feel like they were there. And it's like, yeah, that's a great question. How do you handle it on those nights when you just don't feel like you're on top of your game? That you're just off like a little bit. I mean, not that that ever happened to you, Dan, but just in case it might happen, some how would you?
It's to me at least once a month. What are you talking about? It's just one of those things where you we're always our worst critic, I think is where it comes down to, right? So when we see those types of moments, what the event may have been capable of. And there's a lot of things that can lead to those differences. So for me, if a crowd isn't responding the way I expected them to, whether it was from a conversation with a couple or whether it is just from my reading of a room, and they just weren't responding quite the same way, I start kind of second guessing myself and what could I have done differently. So a lot of that piece comes to then self-reflection. However, and I'm very appreciative of my wife because when I get home, one of the things that she'll ask, or the next morning, she'll be like, "How was the wedding?" Well, I don't know. It's like I felt like it was
Hmm.
there, but it wasn't. And she without fail, was the couple happy? Well, yeah, they were ecstatic, and they gave me big hugs. Then what the heck are you worried about?
What a brilliant question. Yeah, because that really is what it's all about. And if they're happy, we shouldn't be beating ourselves up like we typically do.
What about you?
When I've had nights like that, where it just the mixes aren't, you just feel like you're like a half a beat off or something. Just it's kind of a step back to try to, okay, so maybe I just need to be simpler. I'm not going to try to be trying to do these really more intricate dropping beats and trying to get things lined up and such. Maybe I just have to go and do something a little simpler. Maybe even my announcements. Some nights you just are tongue tied. It doesn't matter what's going on. You just seem like you turn the microphone on and it's like it's all that's coming out of your mouth. Then it goes, let's go take it back to my earlier days when I was first making announcements, where literally I would go, okay, I'm going to turn the microphone on. I'm going to be saying, okay, now we're going to be doing this, 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 and this. And I had it all basically covered instead of just opening a microphone, knowing I wanted to talk about this topic. I would basically kind of script out in my head what I'm going to talk about, going back to a simpler way of doing it, simplifying the process, and then hopefully things will start to click again, and then a person can move on. There's some nights though that it's because, as Dan mentioned, the crowd is just I'm not feeling what I was expecting from the crowd, I think, is the biggest thing. And I start to think it might be me, and it really wasn't, because they were going to do what they wanted to do, and they were having a good time, and how they have a good time. It's just my expectations were not correct. So you just learn after a period of time to do as Dan's wife had said, and basically it's like, hey, did they have a good time? Did they enjoy it? Were they bebopping off to the side when they weren't dancing? Were they singing along? Were they when they left the things with their smiles on faces because they were having such a good time? That's the ultimate judge, what we should be using to judge, as opposed to, did I feel good? If the DJ didn't feel good, that must mean it's bad. No.
Sometimes even in the event, having that reset. Let's assume for a second the couple is good with some slow songs, and wants you to is okay with you dropping that in. Just taking a moment to play a slow song, and just kind of step back, deep breath, and then go back in. I've even done a couple times where, like, I almost need, like, just a kind of a moment away from just the like in my head, right? Because I'm basically between the two speakers, and
Right.
so even though I've got it set so it's not blowing my ears out, I'm still hitting it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll put on a longer song, and then I'll step out of the room,
Yeah.
this or out of where I'm at for the second, and just kind of get away. Big breath in, big breath out, kind of just clear myself, and then go back in. Will it change how things went that night? Maybe, maybe not. Kind of what you were talking about, like that simpler mindset. Just kind of really, okay, almost like take two. Like here we go. And sometimes that can change your mood, which can then change other things that then feed off of that mood.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Good
So
thought. And ultimately, I mean, the complete foolproof way to really kind of reset and bring that crowd back to the dance floor and get people just really to party and have a good time is to reach into your music catalog and pull out a song that people will love, and they'll just go from there. It'll be great.
I thought you're gonna. I thought I was gonna have to take a drink, John. I
Yeah,
thought I was gonna have to
I
do
don't
it.
know what you're talking about. I really don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Dan, we got to wrap things up here. So let's see. We got, of course, our morning stuff that's going to hit this week. We got a couple of other videos that'll be dropping this week also. Howie's in next, djntv.com/chill. I'll put that link into the chat. What you guys do is you head out there, and it's the chill room where everyone just hangs out. Howie and the crew will record, and then And then after that, then they open it up, and it's a Zoom room. You guys can just talk and hang out and have a good time with that. Tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern, it will be the Tuesday Night Music Show. Brian and Jay and a crew, they do the same thing, and in the chill room, djntv.com/chill. Have some fun there. Tomorrow night, ahead of that, at 9 o'clock Eastern, will be the third Big Daddy show. He'll be coming to us tomorrow night. And then next week, you're going to get a Tuesday night doubleheader. You're going to have you'll have 25 minutes of Big Daddy at 9 o'clock Eastern. Then at 9:30 Eastern, it will be Tuesday night with Ben Stowe coming back for our, let's see, we started in 2014. So would this be the 9th season? Probably, I suppose. We started in 2014.
Right?
Yeah.
Should be the 10th season.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Depending on how you view seasons.
Yeah, how we did it. But anyway, so we'll be starting that up in November, and that will be next Tuesday night. And we've got some. Basically, I have some questions that I've been saving for my summer weddings, and I'm going to unleash those on Ben next Tuesday night. So there's a couple of them that I'm really kind of excited to get the answers on those, because I've intentionally not asked Ben the question, even though it was something that did affect my show. I found a workaround, but I don't want to have a workaround. I want to know why, and that'll be next Tuesday night at 9:30 Eastern with the first Tuesday night with Ben Still. Okay.
Be a captive audience.
Yeah, it should be fun. Should be fun. But yeah, I think we're good. Take us home, Dan.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully we answered your questions, or we probably gave you 12 more. But either way, we do appreciate you and everybody who is chiming in on the chat as well. Have yourself a wonderful night, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.